Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Preece.
Hello, everybody.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer tips, insights, ideas, and examples for how small, emerging, and challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods, brands can build their business. Everything from determining if you're ready to grow, where to start, how to prove it online, or how to go about securing distribution at a national retailer, driving your business through to the end consumer, or how to go about finding an investor if you're ready for that aspect. Bottom line is we would love to help you be successful by highlighting the many important aspects of this journey to establishing and growing your brand. Tracy and I have been doing this a long time. We've made a lot of mistakes, and we've done a few good things, so we're here to help you. Please follow our podcast on iTunes or Spotify, leave us a review, and consider sharing the show with a friend or colleague that may benefit from the content. Tracy?
Bruce and I have been involved in consumer packaged goods commercial operations roles for over 30 years. We define commercial operation functions relating to sales, marketing, trade marketing, broker and distributor management, agency selection and management, new product development, brand acquisition and divestitures, and customer management. We also invite on our episodes friends and former colleagues from all aspects of the Road to Retail process to come on the show and offer their opinions and experience. Again, we encourage you to subscribe to our iTunes or Spotify channel at Road, 2 Retail.
So Bruce, tell us about our newest sponsor.
Glad to, Tracy. Tired of getting crushed by chargebacks each time your brand sells product? From dealing with hundreds of forms that all look different to fighting tooth and nail to get repays, managing deductions is tough work. And you're almost certainly leaving money on the table. Fortunately, there's a solution. Floret was built to help brands like yours. With Floret's software platform, you can automate your deductions workflow, get insight into your trade spend, and even have your deductions disputed for you. Whether you're a scrappy young brand trying to break into retail or an established supplier looking to get sharper on trade, Floret will put money back in your pocket. We've saved brands hundreds of thousands of dollars this year alone. Visit www.tryfloret.com to book a demo and learn more. That's www.tryfloret.com.
Again, we encourage you to subscribe to our iTunes or Spotify channel at Road, 2 Retail.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this new episode of Road to Retail. And this is for small emerging brands to help you educate and learn and help learn some stuff today. So Bruce, tell us a little bit about who we have on our show today.
Oh, we have a great guest, Erin Wojtysiak, who's the Associate Director of Paid Media at Pathfinders Advertising. Pathfinders has been on the show a couple of times before. But Erin, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, great. So, folks, what we're going to cover today is Erin's going to give some guidance and counsel about how to work with Facebook and how to use that platform to drive your small, emerging, or challenger brand. Now, as a little bit of background, Facebook is one component of what's known as Meta platforms. Meta owns Facebook, they own Instagram, and they own WhatsApp. A lot of today's discussion will be focused on Facebook and how to use that. But if Erin wobbles into some of these other areas, that's great too. So Erin, before we rock and roll, why don't you tell the folks, a little bit about your background and how you ended up at Pathfinders?
Yeah, so I've been working in marketing professionally since 2011, and I started when I was at school at Ball State University. It's in Muncie, Indiana, which is a little smaller town in Indiana, but a good time. So I went to to Ball State majoring in telecommunications with a minor in communication. So I often joke that I went to school to talk for a living, which is fun. I do an odd amount of math, but it's fun. So I got to Pathfinders in 2017, coming from a sales background, working with like ABC affiliates and doing more traditional stuff. But I was actually trying to sell an old classmate some ads locally, and he wasn't returning my calls. So I borderline professionally harassed him and Pathfinders. I talked to Vicky Holland, who at the time was president of the company, and they were just kind of giving me not the runaround, but when salespeople come calling and you don't really have time to talk to them, that you just kind of shoot them down the line. And I showed up with a custom cookie that said, "For a fun meeting, call Erin," and that got me the meeting I was looking for. And actually, at that meeting, they were like, "Hey, do you like what you do? Do you want to do it on the other side? We're trying to create a media department. We've got, one person that's working with us to do it." And he was my old classmate. So we went to high school together, college together. So it was a really seamless fit. And I've been at Pathfinders now for 7 years almost. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's a great story. Gosh, a custom cookie would have worked for me with lots of these salespeople that tried over the years. So Tracy, why don't you kick this off with Erin for us, please?
Absolutely. So Erin, our audience is primarily small emerging brands. So tell us a little bit about, they want to use Facebook, they want to drive sales, they want to use it to drive brand awareness. But from just a 30,000 foot level, tell us a little bit about how advertising on Facebook works.
Yeah. So advertising on Facebook is actually, it's brilliant. And I think really a pioneer when you're thinking about social advertising, because, it really started with Facebook, and then you started seeing ads on Instagram, which was a really big deal. And that was before Meta acquired Instagram. At the time, it was just Facebook and then Instagram. But the great thing about advertising on Facebook and Instagram and how they're pioneers is that their ads blend really seamlessly into your organic content. So what I mean by organic content is when you just open your Facebook app, whether you're on your browser, on your phone, and you start scrolling, you see, pictures of grandma, pictures of your sisters, your friends, and then you see an ad. But it's meant to blend really seamlessly as you're doing that scrolling motion. And so the success of it is that you don't feel marketed to, right? You're engaging with a beautiful piece of content, a catchy piece of content, and then all of a sudden you're at a brand's website about to make a purchase, right? So that's what's really great about Meta is that it really blends seamlessly with it, and it uses the algorithm, or we call it the Facebook brain, to collect all kinds of juicy details about you from its different sources, like things that you search on the internet through Google, posts you interact with, things that you purchase, things your friends purchase, that really creepy targeting where it's like, I was just talking about that. Now I'm getting an ad for it. How does that work? And that's the algorithm working its magic. So the combination of the organic feel to the ad content and the juicy details that Meta's collecting about you, those two working in tandem is what makes the Meta and Facebook advertising work really well and be successful.
Right. So,
Awesome.
So Erin, many of the smaller brands in our audience, these founders or presidents, if they have some, people under them, they're wearing many, many hats, and they're likely handling all of the demand creation for their brand in-house, either personally, maybe with one other person. What counsel would you give these brands if they're determined to do it yourself on Facebook versus getting to the size where they can afford to bring in an expert who knows exactly what they're doing? Walk us through kind of the third rails, not to touch, or the couple of things to get off to a good start.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to Facebook advertising, the best advice I can give is front end work saves back end headaches. Get your ducks in a row first, before you are ready to push live. And what I mean by that is take the time to get your space set up correctly. Make sure that the information on your business page is correct. Make sure you have a business page, right? Um, there's a what I run into often is that people with these business pages will maybe have one person attached to them, or they think that there's a specific login, or they have to make a different Facebook account to create the business account. So business business pages have to be attached to a real person's Facebook. Facebook is very specific about that. And if you get caught using a fake one, John Smith at anonymous.com, right? Facebook will put up the red flag and put the kibosh on everything that you're doing. So make sure that you've got an accurate business page attached to a real person's Facebook. I would suggest having 3 different trusted individuals with access to that Facebook on the business side. That prevents someone from leaving and then you lose the keys to it, right? So making sure that it's corrected to or connected rather to an email account that you use. That's another thing that we run into a lot is that people will have, their old wedding email as their Facebook email, and then it comes time to let someone in or to get in there. Well, I don't know the password to the email attached to my Facebook. I don't know my Facebook password. Those things can really gum up the works when you're talking about getting ads out and live. So front end work saves back end headaches. Make sure that you've got your proper access to your business page, that the information on that is correct, and that you've got trusted individuals with access to that, so that you never run the risk of losing that access. The other thing I would say is make sure that you have a business manager account. That is something that happens almost automatically nowadays when you get onto your business Facebook. And it's really, really seamless to navigate that. Facebook has a lot of really great tools that makes it very self-explanatory as you're in there to say, okay, add payment here. You can't run ads until you do this and this and this, in terms of verifying your business, adding a credit card in there, and then really just making sure you have a few pieces of really quality content, or images and catchy copy. Having all of those things first will make it so much easier to get in there, to activate, to learn, rather than getting in, hitting a roadblock, trying to get in, hitting a roadblock, making a piece of copy, and Facebook flags it because you made too strong of a statement, like, we are the best that you've ever seen. And Facebook's like, prove it. So those are some things that I think, are really, really important before you get, before you're ready to push live.
So a couple of things, Erin, I want to recap and make sure we're tracking here. So making sure you have a business page. So I'm assuming that is the description of your business or brand. And then the business manager account is kind of the nuts and bolts of being allowed to advertise and how they get paid, et cetera. So did I explain that correctly?
Yeah. The business manager is basically what's under the hood of your Facebook page.
Okay. And then Tracy, I think we may have another bumper sticker here for Road to Retail. Front end work saves back end headaches. I like that.
I like that too. Very good.
I like
very, very, very insightful. I like that. So Erin, one of the things that caught me when you said, oh, I have the best blank, blank, blank. So is that I just want to clarify that's a no-no, because we work with a lot of small emerging brands who will say, I have the best tasting cookie, or I have the best tasting brownie, or, rated #1 restaurant in Boise. So can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah. And actually you gave a really good example. So rated #1 in Boise likely means that they've been awarded at some point, right, that they were the best in Boise. That is a lot different than making a general statement that you are the best. And those really follow more of the Google guidelines. But what you'll find is that where Google will very, very specifically say, you cannot say that you're the best, Facebook's rules often, even by definition, will say that they can use their discretion. And what that means is they usually steal other people's rules and apply them. So
Okay.
so if you're making a broad statement that you're the very best in Boise, but you've never been awarded anything that can
Mhm.
back that up, any accreditation or anything like that, then that becomes a more sensitive statement because someone could report, "Hey, you're not the best, I'm the best because I
Right.
have all
Okay.
of these things." So making really general broad brush statements like that in terms of saying like the very best without any type of accreditation or awards to back that up puts you at risk of your account being put on hold or that ad being put in a restricted space.
All right. Good to know. Good to know. So tell us a little bit about our audience about what kind of assets and creative do you need to have when starting to advertise on Facebook?
Yeah, the most simple pieces of creative that you can have, and often sometimes the most effective, is just some beautiful imagery, and some catchy words to go with it. The the beauty of Facebook is that it doesn't have to be overproduced. And in some cases, overproducing can hurt your performance. So having too much words on an image, for example, um, put the words into the copy or the words that you're reading versus putting it in the image. What makes Facebook, as I said at the beginning, really successful is that it blends really nicely with the content you're engaging with, that your friends are posting. So you don't want a paragraph, that's 2 inches long. If you're scrolling on your phone, you want something quippy. You want something that gets really, really quickly to the point. I'm sure we've all been scrolling on our page and seen the beginning of some very long uh, piece of content, and you have to push see more. When you have to push see more, that can hinder your performance and cause your message to get lost. So you want the most important pieces of your message right there at the top, really quick, nice image that's very clear. That's going to get you the most engagement or clicks on your ad.
So what you're saying is be simple. Keep it simple.
Yes,
You
in a
want
very elaborate way. Yes, keep it simple.
you want sight bites, things that you can see quickly and understand. So
Mhm.
Erin, I want to follow up here on what Tracy asked you. So all that keeping it simple and having the images be not only really crisp and clear but interesting and beautiful as you said. Do you see lots of brands successfully repurposing content from, say, their Amazon pages, or do these have to be different? Does Facebook not like sharing with Amazon? I think these are interesting things as people are trying to get going. It's like, geez, do I have to have 6 pieces for Amazon and 8 for Facebook because they don't like to be in the same, they don't like to quote unquote share? What's going on there?
Yeah. So the is and as it relates to the pieces of content or how you're promoting let's say a water bottle, right? The water bottle image that you're seeing when you get on Amazon is very clearly the water bottle with a white background. And that's something that you'll see across all of the water bottles on Amazon. Their guidelines prevent any type of flashy background. It has to be against a white background. You have to be able to see the product very clearly. Think SKU image, right? Think catalog. That's the type of content that you have on Amazon. Where you wouldn't be able to use necessarily a one-to-one of that white background image on Facebook and expect it to do really well, because you want to show on Facebook, you have to play to that audience. So the Amazon audience is a little bit different, right, than the Facebook audience. The Facebook audience wants to see someone with the water bottle out at a picnic. They want to see it in a setting where they can imagine themselves using the product versus somewhere like Amazon, where you're looking at the product itself. Um, that doesn't necessarily mean you can't promote in the same way, but Facebook does like you to direct to your own website. So say you have this amazing water bottle, right? And you sell it primarily on Amazon. the best way to market that water bottle on Facebook to get people to purchase it on Amazon would be to have a nice image showing the water bottle in use so someone can imagine themselves using it. You direct that ad to your website where you say, "Hey, here's more about my water bottle. You can buy it on Amazon." And then they would click through to go from your website to Amazon to purchase. Facebook and Google really can be very finicky when you're directing ads to a website that you do not own. So directing straight to Amazon can cause problems. Directing straight to, let's say you're a cat litter brand, right? Rather than directing straight to a retailer that way, which we do and we find success with, but having that stop at your website first gives you so much more information to enhance your marketing down the road. And that can get into some technical things like pixels, but Facebook makes all of those steps really, really easy. And that's how someone who's pretty green at doing Facebook marketing can enhance what they're doing on Facebook really, really quickly.
Interesting.
Okay, that's
Interesting.
good to know. Good to know. Great advice. Great insight.
So Erin, we've now kind of wandered into the arena. You've given good counsel on images and phrases and avoid Seymour, things like that. What's kind of the minimum threshold an emerging brand should think about in their mind that they need to commit to Facebook to actually learn, if they know what they're doing, and two, you have at least some pressure to try to drive some sales? Is it literally as low as $50, or is it like $20,000 minimum? I mean, what do you guys see as kind of like, if you can't do at least X, you should probably save your powder?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And what I would come back to is definitely knowing your audience and finding instances to limit wasted impressions, right? So I'm a brand new brand. I'm going to get on Facebook for the first time, but I don't have a lot of money. Maybe I have $500 for a whole month, $200 for a whole month. I want to make sure that the targeting that I'm putting in place is not to the entire United States for all people 18 to 65 plus. I want to make sure that the money that I'm spending, the investment that I'm making, is reaching my audience with limited instances of my ad being shown to someone who's not a good fit. So in the instance of let's say my water bottle is made locally, I'm just trying to get it off the ground. I'm gonna put my ad out there, and I'm gonna think about my audience. So water bottles are very trendy right now. If you can get on the fad and be the water bottle, then you've got really nice success ahead of you. So I'm going to limit my targeting to maybe 18 to 25-year-olds that are willing to purchase a more premium style water bottle, because mine's made locally, and our facility is very cool. There's a little bit of an experience with it. So I'm going to limit my geographic area that I'm targeting to let's say a 20-mile radius of my factory, because part of my value prop is that you can come and have this awesome experience and get this cool water bottle. So I want young people in my area to see my water bottle and start using it, right? So for my $500 for a month, I'm going to have my beautiful image, my catchy phrase. I'm going to do some type of learn more about trying out our water bottle and our experience. And that ad's only going to go to people that very specifically fit my audience, and limit my audience size so I can make more of an impact with the people that are going to follow through on that action.
So the comment around wasted impressions is just if it's made locally, and let's just say Great Lakes region, you don't want to be advertising in Phoenix, because those impressions are wasted, because that's a little bit off strategy. Can you just quickly talk a little bit about the tools within Facebook that allow you to hone in that targeting? Again, we're talking to a lot of people like me that have never had to personally set up a Facebook ad campaign. I call people like you and tell you what I want done.
Yeah, yeah. And so the structure that Facebook takes on the back end is similar to a lot of other self-service platforms or platforms that people can really, they're made to be really easy to function. And they have a really common structure, and that's a campaign setup, an ad group setup is what they call it, and then a creative setup. So what that means is your campaign is the bigger point that you're trying to make, right? So come visit the location, for example, right? That's going to be my campaign name. At the campaign level, I'm setting up what my overall budget's going to be. I'm setting up what my run dates are going to be. Very, very basic information up at the campaign level. At the ad group level, that's where you start to get into your targeting. That's where you're putting in things like they have an interest in hiking. They have an interest in staying hydrated. That's not actually one, but you can start to peel apart some of those juicy details that I talked about at the beginning. And then at the ad level is where you're putting in all of your imagery. If you want to A/B test or run two different messages alongside each other, that campaign ad group ad structure is really easy to follow. Check boxes all the way through. Meta will even give you, recommended in parentheses, so going into it, your first time building, what best practices would be recommended by Facebook.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. Anything
Tracy?
else, Bruce? You good? So
I'm good. That was a lot. So
Yeah,
I'm taking some
lot.
notes for our
good.
recap.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to get a little technical here. So what is your advice on getting your SEO and SEM correct on Google before you're really starting to advertise on Facebook, or should you do it concurrently? What's your advice on that?
Yeah, so Google is a space for me that it should be like your electric bill. It's something that you are paying attention to every single month if you have a business. If you're not running ads, which would be your search engine marketing or SEM, then you should definitely be working with a website facilitator to make sure that your SEO is top notch. The Google space can be so much more complex than something like Facebook that's very user friendly. Facebook has an entire library of resources that range from beginner to expert that you can learn about Facebook. Google is not necessarily as user friendly, especially when you're trying to improve where you show up organically on a website. So I would always recommend that businesses are capturing their business name, right? So a very basic ads campaign on Google can make sure that you have Road to Retail and someone else isn't showing up first, right? Those big keywords that are yours, that really identify you, relate to you, those are words that should be getting bid on, in my opinion, every month and maintained. Because you always want to make sure that if someone's seeing your ad on Facebook, for example, if they go to Google you want to show up. So having those things to work in tandem is extremely important.
All right, good advice. Good.
Great.
Anything there, Bruce?
No, I mean, I like the analogy of Google kind of being the electric bill. You just it's table stakes now, right?
Yeah.
And we dealt with brands, Erin, that they think because they have they have a website and they have a brand and they've set up some things on Google, they neglect the monitoring and the bidding. And again, I could be wrong here, but some of the times you say, listen, if your brand starts to get traction organically or through other marketing, you'll move up those search results. But if you want to try to force your way up the search faster, you're going to have to pay.
Yeah. Yeah. And not even just on the ad side, but what we're finding too is, so the Google brain is similar to the Facebook brain, is very complex. The algorithm that Google uses to decide who is that top spot is getting more and more sophisticated. So they're using down to the descriptions of the images that you've uploaded on your website to help facilitate that search. So if you haven't updated your website in 2 years, then you could be missing out on a much higher ranking than you're experiencing right now, just because those very nitty-gritty pieces of your website, the words that you're using to describe yourself, the functionality of your site, if those things aren't maintained, then Google says, oh, here's a better one, right? That is being maintained, that follows best practices, that resonates just a little bit more. It can be a very small change that you can make to your website that will improve your organic search ranking. And Google can tell if you're updating it or not.
Interesting. So since even big brands, but with small emerging challenger brands, one of the things that's very, very precious is, of course, their A&P budgets, right? So what metrics, when you're advertising on Facebook, what are the key metrics that a brand owner, founder should be looking at now that they've committed and jumped in to advertising on Facebook? What are some of the metrics and diagnostics that Facebook provides, and what are like I'm sure there's 10, but what are like the 3? It's like, man, if your heart's not beating and you're not breathing, the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. So what are the key ones you should look at first?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll describe these in order that I look at them first. So there's 3 basic ones. Clicks. If you're not getting clicks, then there's a problem, right? Whether the most common ad type is, I want them to come to my website, right? I want traffic. I need them to come through. So if they're not clicking on your ad, then they're not coming to your website, and there's a problem, because Facebook's always going to deliver. It's always going to spend your money. But if they're not clicking, then there's something wrong. That means that your audience isn't right, because it's not resonating with your copy, or vice versa, right? Your copy's not resonating with your audience, but clicks is number 1. They have to engage with your ad for more people to see it, for your ad to be successful. Then I'm looking at the click-through rate. I'm looking at, there's benchmarks, usually 2.41 is a good average click-through rate. And the click-through rate is the relationship between how many people have seen your ad and how many people clicked on your ad. So that third one is impressions. But when I'm determining whether or not a campaign is successful, did they click on it? Did the rate at which they click on it, or the click-through rate, right? Is that to the standard that it should be for this industry, for my historical performance, for my competitors, if you can get that information, which is more difficult. And then are people seeing it, right?
Right.
I keep impressions lower on my list because, like I said, the platform's always going to try and spend your money. If you're being too specific, it won't spend. So that's something that you do want to keep an eye on, because it's a delicate dance, right? Showing too much, not showing enough, but making sure that they're clicking on it, they're engaging with it at a solid rate, and that it's just being seen. All of those 3 things are really important in terms of determining success, not just on Facebook, but everywhere.
Sorry. When you look at these, Erin, what are you thinking in terms of tweaks? Is this something you should kind of just let cook for a couple of weeks? Or if you see something weird, you should tweak it after 48 hours? How long do you let something marinate and work before you either start getting excited that it's working or worried?
Yeah, that's a good question. And especially when it's brand new. So say I'm brand new, this is my first campaign, or it's a brand new campaign. What I like to always relate brand new campaigns back to is like a weight loss program, right? It takes 4 weeks for you to see it, 8 weeks for friends and family, 12 weeks for the rest of the world. So if you jump in and you make a tweak too soon, you're going to miss out on some really valuable learnings, because most often that Facebook brain is going to put your campaign into a learning phase. And that learning phase can range anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, because it needs to say, okay, these people are clicking on it, but they're not waiting for the page to load. Let me go down and find these other people to see if they are going to click through and stay longer. Okay, they're following through with the action that I want. Find more people like that. And that's how the algorithms work, right? Is based on the profile you're giving me, who's coming through, following through that action.
So Erin, when you talk about the analogy of the weight loss is good, is it dependent at all about the size of the budget? So if I'm spending $500, might it take me a little longer to see what the real trend is versus if I'm spending, say, $20,000? Does money buy you speed in learning, or not really?
It'll buy you more impressions, right? It'll buy you more visibility, but the rate at which your users engage with your content is not going to be something that you can buy. That's something that's really important to know.
Interesting.
So if
That's good.
if your audience and your content aren't meshing well, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it, because if anything, once you throw more money at it and you crank up your impressions, if your engagement on that content isn't increasing with your ads, then your engagement rate is going to tank down and it's going to look like a big flop. So that's why you have to let the learnings learn, right? You have to let the impressions serve and give audiences a chance to engage with your content before you can say whether or not it's successful. Because if you just keep throwing more money at it every 2 weeks, then all that's going to do is crank that up in terms of impressions and engagement, and you're never going to reach that benchmark or get any valuable learnings. So more than the money, it's making sure that your audience is engaging with your ad. And I would recommend starting a little bit smaller, because Facebook is the one platform that you don't have to worry about pacing. And what I mean by that is, if I say that I have $500 to spend in the next 2 weeks, Facebook is going to do a really great job at making sure that it's spending your $500 really nicely over that whole 2 weeks. It's not going to end 3 days in. So that's something that's really nice as someone is getting into marketing, is Facebook will pace for you, where other platforms will be like, thanks for the $500, give me 500 more if you want to see what happens in the next 3 days, right? So
yeah, I can imagine. So one thing, Erin, I wanted to add on that, Bruce, is, so our audience is small emerging brands. We work with, and our listeners are a lot of entrepreneurs. How often do you see, because entrepreneurs and brand owners aren't the most patient folks. So after a week or two, do you see a lot of your clients going, oh, this isn't working, because they're not seeing results or they're not learning? Like, I know you're emphasizing patience, but how often do you see, clients like, oh, I got to change it, or I got to do something different because it's not working?
yeah, I can usually get people to hold out for a month.
Okay.
If I can have 2 months, then that's ideal, because then I can tell them, okay, this month compared to that month. So period over period comparisons are extremely important in improving your marketing over time. I want to see a percent change. And if I'm looking at 1 month over the next month, if it's a less than 10% change up or down from 1 month to the next, I'm calling that a trend, right? Because we're going to experience some type of fluctuation. If it's steadily decreasing over time, that's a little bit different. But if I'm seeing a fluctuation up and down that's in a range of 10% period over period for those 3 metrics I talked about, clicks, click-through rate, impressions, then that's going to give me a good idea, like, okay, this is working. I can make, I'll look at the performance, like, okay, I have an audience of 18 to 30-year-olds, but 21 to 25 are really the ones that are engaging. Let me, in the next month, cut down my audience size. Same content, let me just adjust my audience. Okay, now I'm seeing a percent change of 20%. right? 20% increase in click-through rate after making that audience change. Okay, now I'm getting to know my audience a little bit better, and that's how you continuously improve. So if I can have 8 weeks or 2 months to be able to show month over month, period over period, then we're working good. But 2 weeks is a pretty common learning period phase. So I really try to encourage people to hold out at least that long. Now, if something is people aren't clicking at all, I'm not going to wait that long.
Okay.
But that's not very common. So if within 2 weeks no one is engaging, then there's a bigger problem, either with your audience, most likely with your audience targeting versus your content.
So it's really about the audience that you're targeting, not necessarily the message or the imaging.
Yeah. So no clicks equals break the glass and make some changes. But Erin's point is really interesting. So hanging in there over a period of time, because only 2 data points is a line. The third data point starts to give you a graph and a trend. And if you see it a little bit longer, and Tracy, everything she's saying harkens back to the Doug Hall episode around clarity of message and what you said earlier, Erin, about keeping it simple. Doug, to paraphrase, he said, make sure consumers understand your product and or service so that if they aren't choosing it, it's because they don't need or want it. Don't have them not buy because they don't understand it. And there's just a huge difference there. Anyway, kick it back to Tracy, but that was really great stuff there, Erin.
Yeah, very good. So I think we kind of touched on this a little bit, but brands obviously want to drive sales, and I think you touched on this a little bit, just wanted to confirm, but you're recommending that they drive sales through their website versus through a third party like an Amazon.
Yeah, and if you're going to use a third party like an Amazon, I would recommend setting that up on your website.
Okay.
Because when we talk about how things like Google search can work in tandem with Facebook, the Facebook possibilities, again, range from beginner to expert. But if you have the patience and the time to walk through some of those free training courses that Facebook provides, they can tell you how to place a pixel or a little snippet of code on your website. And that will allow Facebook to capture people that have come to your website so you can serve them a follow-up message on Facebook. And that is extremely valuable because contextual advertising or those interest-based things like I like to hike, so serve me a water bottle, taking it from contextual or interest-based to they have been to my site before increases your likelihood of them following through on a purchase. And so being able to take those free learnings and coming all the way through is really, really important to enhancing your marketing and being successful.
Good advice.
Great. Okay, Erin, we're starting to get rounding third base, heading for home here. So who has had the greatest influence on your professional career to date, and what did you get out of that? What made that special? Either something that went great that, a manager was helpful on, or something that didn't go well and they kind of coached you through it versus, just beat you to a pulp.
I've been so lucky in my time at Pathfinders that the leadership that I have had exposure to they're just so good at what they do, and it's really easy to learn from them. So Vicky Holland is someone that I look up to and admire immensely because, she is a hardworking woman. She's a badass mom. She is that person that comes into the meeting and wants to get the information really quickly, but understand it thoroughly and knows then how to take the information you just shared with her and her skills to follow through on an action. I've had some really great managers directly, predecessors on the media team that I got some really great advice from Garrett Gingrich that was like, as I was coming up in this role, he said, the higher up you get, the less instruction you get. And that's something I think about often as I'm presented with a new challenge in my role, because it reminds me that I'm in this role to think. I'm here to use my expertise, and someone doesn't necessarily want to give me orders to follow. They want to get my take on it, and so I think that's something that I think about often. Um, and then actually, front end work saves back end headaches came from Kelly Ball. So I can't take full credit for that. He's the current CEO of Pathfinders, and his leadership is something that I admire a lot because he involves the team in decision making. It is not a dictatorship. He wants to hear our opinions. He actually applies what we're saying. And all of those things I try to take as I'm managing with my team to make sure that they see me as a strong person that can come in the room and hear the information, someone that can come in the room and use my strategic thinking, right? But that I'm also consulting them on any decisions that would affect them in terms of how we run the team, and things like that. So a lot of leadership at Pathfinders.
Those are some good folks. All right, Erin. So we're going to go off the board with one other topic, and Tracy's really good at this. He's the king of the checklist. So if a small emerging brand really wanted to get going on Facebook, what are like their first 3 steps?
Make sure that you have a business page. Make sure that you have access to that business page with your Facebook. And make sure that you've got at least one other team member that you trust really well to have access to that. And then I would say dig into all of the free resources that Facebook has to offer. They call it Facebook Blueprint, at least they used to. And that's got all types of tutorials ranging very obviously from beginner to expert. And it really walks you through every step of the process. So you're understanding what you're doing as you're doing it. And it also provides you opportunity to learn.
Great. So Erin,
Awesome.
before we head to the big finish, how can people get in touch with you or get in touch with Pathfinders if they want to learn more or potentially become a client because Facebook's too complex for them to handle and they need a pro? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would say www.pathfind.com is the best place to go because it is a direct line to Pathfinders. You can reach out to us to learn more, to ask questions, to see some of our previous work. It's also got an entire directory of our team there, or on LinkedIn at Erin Wojtysiak, or linkedin.com/Erin Wojtysiak. But you have to learn how to spell my name first, otherwise you won't find me. So Pathfind is probably the best option first.
Well, for the folks out there, Erin's last name is a fantastic Scrabble word, and I practiced saying it. I was going to call her Erin Jones, but that would be disrespectful to her and her family. But Erin, thank you so much for coming on today.
Absolutely.
This was fantastic. TP, the big finish.
Absolutely, Erin. This is so insightful. Great information. I know that our audience is going to love it. And again, I encourage our audience to follow us on our Spotify and iTunes channel. We will be posting this episode in the near future. And follow us on Road, the number 2 Retail. And also find us on LinkedIn. Thanks so much. Take care.
Good luck out there, folks.